Greetings. This is section 3 of a 4-part presentation on Neohumanism. In section 1, it was stated that a lack of harmony between the inner and outer worlds has led to a great increase in mental disease. In the next 2 sections of this presentation, we will examine the thought processes that enable the necessary and desired harmony. First, let us consider the outer world. Animal existence is more physical than mental, but human existence is more mental than physical. Dogs are highly intelligent animals. Nevertheless, you can kick a dog, and the dog will still come and take your food just as soon as the dog overcomes fear of you. But if you merely insult a human being, that human being may never accept any food that you offer. In addition to various activities like thinking and remembering, human mind has 3 modes of functioning: instinct, sentiment, and discrimination. All living beings, developed and undeveloped, have inborn instincts. Mosquitoes suck blood. Human babies drink their mother's milk. In undeveloped beings, instinct is their only mental function. Instinct is neither good nor bad. It is natural. As life evolves, sentiment comes into play and has greater and greater influence. In more developed animals, sentiment exceeds instinct. But sentiment is not discrimination. Goaded by sentiment, mind runs blindly after what it likes. Those who move along the path of sentiment do not discriminate between right and wrong. They meekly accept all superstitions surrounding the goal toward which they are running. Such conduct is very dangerous. It may destroy the sentimental individual and even an entire family or social group. On the path of sentiment, people do not ask questions about propriety or even employ common sense. Sentiment is an unbridled horse. To do or not to do? That is the question. Discrimination is when human beings, given a choice between a proper and an improper course of action, choose the proper one. The path of discrimination is called rationality. Rationality requires time for decision-making. It is definitely a slower process than sentiment. No matter how fast you can think, your feelings are faster. Rationality is a 3-stage process. First, you must gather all of the necessary information. Then you must analyze that information. And finally, you must decide in favor of propriety. In human beings, discrimination exists. Regrettably, it is rarely used. Rationality is a human treasure that no animal possesses. Those motivated by devotion and rationality must be victorious. Only they can accomplish worthy deeds in this world. Those motivated by sentiment may win temporary applause, but eventually the harm that they do is exposed. Ultimately, their reputation is ruined. On the other hand, rational people may do great deeds, mediocre deeds, or no deeds worthy of mention at all, But two things are common to all rational people. They do no harm to society, and whatever respect they earn remains untarnished. Geosentiment is sentiment flowing toward a particular territory. For example, the German sentiment for Deutschland, the British sentiment for England, the French sentiment for France, and the Jewish sentiment for Israel. Where geosentiment is dominant, there is no consideration of right or wrong, and there is no consideration of logical or illogical. In the first phase, sentiment substitutes for reason, and in the second phase, superstition substitutes for reason. All religious, economic, political, and social theories based on geosentiment make way for superstition. One person prays facing a city. Another person prays facing a piece of parchment or a part of a wall. One person imagines that all sins are forgiven by bathing in a disease-ridden river. Another person imagines that all sins are forgiven by making pilgrimage to a holy site, a holy city, or a holy land. Religions based on geosentiment become reservoirs of superstition and oceans of blind faith. And human beings remain mired in that filth for ages. When geosentiment operates in the religious sphere, bloodshed is inevitable. But when geosentiment operates in the social sphere, it is even worse. People do not think for the welfare of others. Rather, they thrive on the lifeblood of others, thinking it to be natural. For their economic benefit, the industrially developed countries resort to imperialism, economic and political fascism, and so on. They try to create an arena of satellite states to ensure the supply of raw materials as well as markets for their finished goods. When the underdeveloped countries detect the intentions of the developed countries, conflict arises among them. This poses a great threat to world peace. Geosentiment leads to an irrational approach to economic development of regions. People think, although we have no iron ore or cheap electricity, we must have a steel plant in our area. Although we have no crude oil or cheap electricity, we must have an oil refinery in our area. Although we have no uranium or nuclear technology, we must have a nuclear power plant in our area. All geosentiments, georeligion, geosociology, geoeconomics, and so on, are limited to a particular country or a particular direction. Those countries or directions beyond the confines of the geosentiment are considered profane. In the political sphere, the same trend applies. For example, when some politicians tried to limit socialism to their country alone, they came up with National Socialism, also known as Nazism. Not only was Nazism a political failure, it did immense harm as well. All theories based on geosentiment confine people within bondages of limitations. All theories based on geosentiment alienate one social group from another. And even worse, all theories based on geosentiment ultimately lead to violent conflict among social groups. This is extremely dangerous for human civilization. Under the influence of geosentiment, people forget the fundamental spirit of humanism, and people deviate from the principles of Dharma, righteousness. Geosentiment is a great threat to humanness and to humanism. Geosentiment originates in sentiment, and sentiment is a mental mode where people do not follow rationality. So geosentiment is cheap. It has no relation to human dharma. Cats demarcate their territory and regard any other cat who seeks to live there as an invader to be fought. But human beings, 100% human beings, regard the entire universe as their home and cherish all other beings within the universe as their family. Rationality is the path of conscience, and the goal on the path of conscience is adherence to Dharma. The pinnacle of Dharma for all human beings is realization of the Supreme. That realization is expensive. It cannot be bought with geosentiment. Even rationality is just a down payment. For more information on Neohumanism, please view sections 1, 2, and 4 of this presentation.